Hi guys, it's me, Miss Davis. Today I want you to take this time to look over 10.1 to 10.5. So that's 10.1, 10.3, 10.4, and 10.5 because we skipped the circle graphs because they weren't in the main portion of this test. Okay, that is bar graphs. You need to know the difference between a horizontal and a vertical bar graph, and you need to know the difference between a segmented bar graph and a clustered bar graph. Okay, so if you remember, the segmented ones are the ones that show them going all the way up. So it's got one segment, two segment, three segments. Whereas the clustered ones are the ones that are more grouped together. Okay, do not forget to look those over. You also need to know where things are located on these. The majority of knowing like the grid lines and the legend and all of that is to help you read this. You're going to have one of every type of graph on this test, and you're going to have to answer questions over it. So make sure you're looking at that. Okay, 10.3 are the stem and leaf plots. Okay, now what I want you to make sure that you know is you need to know these two words, qualitative and quantitative. So qualitative is non-numeric that can be observed, not measured, whereas quantitative can be measured. When you think about it, quality can't really be measured, but quantity can. Quantity is something that you can measure, whereas quality, the quality of a friend, you don't really measure things like that. Okay? Now with stem and leaf plots, the left side is the stem and the right side is the leaf. They need to cover everything. So the stems have to have everything. Notice how even if you don't have something, so like I'm going to use this one right here as an example, okay? It shows 2 and then an empty space after it, 3 and a 6, a 4 and an empty space after it. They still have to be there even though if they don't have any data there. It's like on a flower. You can't just cut out the part of the stem and have it hovering, floating there with nothing there. Even if it doesn't have a leaf or a flower on it, you still have to have that stem to connect it. So the stems have to be there even if they don't have any leaves to go with it. Okay? And how this reads is, when you have these data, if you look at this one, I've got 9, 10, 11, and then I over here have a 2 that is underlined. How I say what that represents is the 2 is my ones place, and then this is my tens and hundredths or anything after that. Okay? Same thing here. So this just tacks on to the end of this, even if it's a decimal. Okay? Don't forget that with stem and leaf plots. Don't panic. Okay? Histograms. Histograms. They look a lot like bar graphs, don't they? So histograms usually are basically the bar graphs that are all stuck right close to each other. It's like a giant cluster graph. Okay? What you need to know about histograms is that the way they're written is each bar of a histogram is a group. So like this is the 150s to 160s right here. So it's 150 all the way up to 175 technically. And then it goes 175 to 200. Usually they're in groups of 10s, like the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. Okay, on your test they'll be in groups of 10s. So make sure that you count. You're going to look at where the numbers fall. So if it's between 60 and 70, that's the 60s. If it's between 100 and 110, that's the 100. If it's between 110 and 120, that's the 110s. Okay. So keep that in mind when you are working on these histograms. Another thing is if they are symmetric versus asymmetric. So symmetric is going to go up, peak in the middle, and go back down, or it's going to kind of like rise. Symmetric looks like if you were to fold it in half, you could make it look equal on both sides. Okay, so if it starts off high and goes down, where it has what looks like a negative association or even a positive association, that would be more along the lines of asymmetric. So just keep that in mind while you are looking over these things. Okay? Mean, median, mode, and range. Remember that little riddle? I don't know if you guys read it, but it says this. Hey diddle diddle, the median's the middle, you add and divide for the mean. The mode is the one that appears the most, and the range is the difference between. Okay, I think you guys have all of that except for the mode. So with mode, you can have unimodal, bimodal, multimodal, or no mode. When on your excuse me, on your quiz that you had the other day, it asked for the mode. A couple of you guys just put every number that was repeated. It's the one that is repeated the most often. So you're looking for something that, say there are a couple things repeated by 2 and then there's one thing repeated by 4, like 4 times. That would be your mode. Don't put the things that are repeated twice. Put the thing that's repeated the most often. Now say you have 2 numbers that are both repeated 3 times. That would be bimodal. That means 2 modes. Multimodal is anytime there's more than 3 or more. Unimodal is 1, bimodal is 2, multi is 3, no mode is 0. Okay? Now remember, it's not just the ones that are repeated, it's the ones that are repeated the most. The mode is the one that appears the most. Okay? And then actually that's really all I can think of to remind you guys over the stuff for your test. You have a quiz today. Let me see what that is over real quick. You have a quiz today over 10.7 and 10.8. I don't know if you were watching this before or after you take it. One thing I want to remind you is that when you are dealing with these data, unique means 1, bi means 2, okay? I think you get the positive, negative, and no associations. But with the lines of fit, I need you guys to make sure that you understand those are formulas. That you've got the x-axis on a graph and you've got the y-axis on a graph. If it has an x value in it, it's going to be what goes along this side. If it has a y value in it, it's going to be what goes along here. Okay? I want you to make sure you remember that because that's going to come in handy for solving some of those formulas. Okay, I'm going to drop you guys a small little assignment just to make sure that you are prepared and you're ready for tomorrow to continue on to, we're going to cover box and whisker plots, scatter plots, lines of fit, and probability, okay? So I will see you guys tomorrow.